Good evening, everyone. I'm going to call the City Council Urban Affairs Committee meeting to order. It is 7 o'clock on June 24th. We have two items on our agenda. I'm going to take them in reverse order so that the people here for Lazard don't have to wait around while we take up Donald Lynch. So the first item on the agenda is order number 24-109-121, a proposed zoning amendment to Code Chapter 650 zoning to create the Lazard Drive Overlay District. We had our public hearing on April 22nd. We have a letter from the Planning Board from their public hearing that was held on June 17th. I'm going to read that into the record, and then I'll open it up for Attorney Falk if he has any opening remarks. Honorable President Ossing and councilors, at its regularly scheduled meeting on June 17th, 2024, the Planning Board took the following action. On a motion by Dr. Finby, seconded by Mr. LaVenture, the board voted to send a favorable recommendation to the City Council on the above referenced zoning amendment for the following reasons. The board agreed that the proposed change is in keeping with the character of the neighborhood because its most affected neighbors are residential properties. The board's consensus was the proposed change would increase the overall traffic in the neighborhood, but did argue it would impact the neighborhood less than a fully operating office building, self-storage establishment, and/or contractor's yard. Also, the development would have a lesser impact on neighbors because the proposed development is set back from the road. The board agreed the proposed zoning change would benefit the city by reviving a dormant property and would provide a use not permitted elsewhere by converting an office building to a residential use. The board agreed that the proposed change is in keeping with the intent and purposes of the city zoning ordinances by providing a residential use that is more consistent with the most impacted neighbors. Additionally, the board suggested the following: remove contractor yards and self-storage units from the list of allowable uses. Request the applicant to improve the access to Lake Williams and the trail to the William Street Baseball Complex, and request contribution to improvements at the William Street Baseball Complex. Request the applicant to explore porous pavement applications where appropriate. Request the applicant to contribute to the fire mitigation fund and funding for traffic controls in the neighborhood. Ask the city to explore funding to expand the affordable housing options for the development, and add language limiting the number of non-owner occupied units. Personally, I think the middle requests talking about Lake Williams mitigation, porous pavement are all more appropriate for when we get to a special permit, if this is actually approved as a zoning change. I do have some comments I will make on the removing the contractor and self-storage and the non-owner occupied units. So for now, I'll turn it over to Attorney Falk if he has anything to state to begin with.
Great. Thank you, Madam Chair. For the record, Brian Falk from Myrick O'Connell, here on behalf of the proponent FD 130 Lazat LLC, which is an affiliate of Ferris Development. With me from Ferris Development is George Bonin. Thank you for the introduction in terms of where we are procedurally. I'm happy to have a favorable recommendation from the Planning Board. I had submitted last week a red line with some suggested edits to the proposed overlay district. Some of this is responsive to what the Planning Board and councilors had talked about at the public hearings, and also comments that we received from residents who turned out at those hearings. And some of the other edits are to align this overlay district with some of the other overlay districts we have in the city, some language, stock language essentially that is often in these overlay districts that had been omitted from the original draft of this. You'll note also that we have you should have an updated plan before you in terms of the zoning map. The original proposal was a bit more expansive. The map now that we're looking for in terms of the scope of the overlay district are the two parcels that are controlled by Ferris Development, and then the National Grid strip that runs between the two of them. We're not looking to have the parcels closer to Forest Street and William Street to be part of the overlay district. It's something that we had heard from counselors and from residents, and so we had reduced the scope overall of the overlay district to just those 18 acres on those 3 parcels. And just as a refresher, the concept plan that we submitted with the petition is looking to do multifamily condominiums, both in the existing vacant office building at Lazat Drive, and then also in 2 new buildings that would be located directly on existing unused parking areas. So the intent is no new impervious, no green space going away, better utilization of essentially an unused sea of parking on these parcels, and then the office building, which has been vacant for over 10 years and with no real prospects for a use that would be allowed in the limited industrial district right now, which is why we're looking to do this. Those are the edits that we made, and I'm happy to walk through them with you or have the committee walk through them. And look forward to your review and comments. I'm sure Madam Chair would have mentioned, but the deadline for a decision is July 22nd. It's technically July 21st, but that's a Sunday, so it bumps forward to Monday, July 22nd, which is the council's next meeting.
And I did talk to the solicitor today. He is comfortable if this body does make a recommendation that he could have the documents on the 22nd agenda in proper form. I could report out the findings from the meeting and then suspend to actually vote. So it will be up to this body to decide how we move forward. If we don't vote on the 22nd, they are back to square one. So hopefully if there is agreement on this, that we can get that accomplished. All right, does everybody have a copy of the redlined amended that was sent to us from Attorney Falk? I'm just going to begin there with the order. It is Lazat Drive Overlay District, so this one is anything in LI that's allowed underneath would still be allowed by right or by special permit in that zone, and then the overlay would cover specific additional. So he is numbering the 65039-1. We will see if that works for the solicitor. I know as we're adding more of these in. The purpose and objectives, the Lazat Drive Overlay District, the LDOD allows the application of supplemental land use controls within the boundaries of a certain overlay district as an alternative to land use controls that exist in the underlying district. The establishment of the LDOD is to enhance land use development, promote housing by allowing the construction of market rate and affordable rate multifamily condominiums, and then he is adding, and to encourage the redevelopment of underutilized commercial buildings. So I will take up the comment from the planning board, their very last comment, add language limiting the number of non-owner occupied units. I'd asked the solicitor if there's a way to add in the word owner-occupied in the multifamily condominium section. He did remind me that on page 2, where it's talked about permitted uses, the term multifamily dwelling is what's used. That is defined in the code. Condominiums are not defined in the code, or multifamily condominiums aren't defined in the code. So he wasn't sure that the overlay was the place to put it, but to put it in the special permit and have the discussion of whether we want to limit and make it all owner-occupied or do some sort of a split. So is everybody comfortable with saving that along with some of the other comments from the planning board? Assuming there is a special permit coming to us for multifamily housing, we can talk about the owner-occupied portion of it. Everybody okay with that? Everybody's okay with the purpose and objectives as amended? Okay, the location for the purpose of the section, the LDOD is located along the west side of Lazat Drive and the east side of Interstate 495, containing approximately 18 acres as indicated on the city zoning map and more particularly depicted in Exhibit A attached here too. So we do have the map, and as Attorney Fox said, it is now less some of the original parcels. The authority of the permit granting authority, maybe too many authorities are there. The city council shall be the special permit granting authority in the LDOD, and the site plan review committee shall be the site plan review authority in the LDOD. The city council may elect to vary the dimensional, parking design, and landscaping requirements applicable to a use or structure by special permit upon findings that such change shall result in an improved design and will not nullify or substantially derogate from the intent of purpose of this section. And that language is in a lot of our zoning. It lets us work with the developer. Everybody's okay with the fact that this will be site plan review, who will then look at the site plan. You know, in some of our bigger districts, we are also site plan, which gets to be a little complicated in my opinion. So I'm happy to let them do their job. Permitted uses. I'm sorry, Councilor Doucette.
Yeah, Madam Chair. I just have a couple of general comments about this. I'd like to get some clarifications on some issues, if that's okay with you.
Can we get to them when we get to the actual language?
Okay. Okay, that's fine then.
Okay. There's not a whole lot of language, so I think we can get through it and go pretty quickly. All permitted uses must comply with the appropriate provisions of Article 5 and Article 7, except as otherwise specified herein, in addition to those uses which are allowed either by right or by special permit in the underlying district of any land which has been included in the LDOD. The City Council may, by special permit in accordance with 65059, allow for multifamily dwellings as defined in 650-5B, including multiple buildings on a single lot, provided that the total number of multifamily dwelling units in the LDOD shall not exceed 250. So they have put a limit on this. As we know, limits have been put in and limits have been modified by amending the special permit.
Madam Chair?
Councilor Doucette.
So in the conversation you were discussing before, as far as the percentage of being owned, this would most likely be the location where that wording would be included. Is that true?
No, I think the suggestion from the solicitor was not to add it into this document at all, but to in fact wait until we get a special permit application for those multifamily dwelling units.
Okay, so it would be considered part of the special
It
permit?
would be part of the special permit.
Okay. I have some other comments I would like to see as included as part of the special permit at some point, probably after we review this, if that's okay with you.
Yep, and I will have the letter from the planning board handy so that we can discuss their recommendations as we deal with the special permit part. So that will be on my list of things to make sure that we take care of. Councilor Oram.
Thank you, Madam Chair. A question, when we say shall not exceed 250, when you look through this whole process, it allows the site plan to modify by 10%. So indeed, if they can modify by 10% at the site plan, can they go up to 275?
I don't think site plan can modify the number of units.
Well, it says up to 10%.
Where does it say that?
In the red markings. Further down.
If
We can
I-
talk about it at that point, or we
Site
can
plan
talk about it
approval.
now.
If I may, Madam Chair, I think I can clarify. I had added section I on modifications, which is similar language that are in other overlay districts. And that's essentially modifications to the special permit or the site plan approval after original approval to provide some flexibility with parameters in place in terms of what can be approved by the building commissioner as essentially an administrative amendment and what has to come back to the council, the site plan committee, as a what we call a major amendment. But that's to the special permit or the site plan decision. The 250 unit cap, that's a zoning cap. The only way that would get modified is coming back to amend the zoning.
So that is locked in at 250 and not 275 if you're looking at 10%.
Correct.
Very good. Thank you. Thank you, Madam Chair.
And is everybody comfortable with the 250 as a number of units? That doesn't talk about the number of bedrooms within that. That's all part of the special permit portion of this. 250 housing units. I don't see anybody raising their hand. All right. This is where the solicitor is recommending, if we want to talk about the removing contractor yards. She is suggesting adding in a new section E, which would be uses not permitted, and he could tweak the language to be something like notwithstanding anything in the code, contractor yards would not be allowed in the LDOD. So is that something that we want to prohibit? Or are we comfortable because they are technically allowed in the LI as a special permit to deal with it if it comes to us as a special permit? Conversation, concerns, questions?
My only concern is, and I can work with the solicitor on it, we assume we're going to keep owning the property and come forward with a special permit application and do this project. If something went wrong, and that didn't happen, we now, by having this in here, that's no longer allowed on this property, going forward, even if this project didn't go through. I guess that would be the concern. I'm sure we can draft around that, but that would be the concern, that would only apply if the owners took advantage of the multifamily by special permit in the overlay district. If not, if the overlay district was not implemented or wasn't taken advantage of by the property owner, then all the existing zoning would stay in place. Because those yards are currently allowed by special permit in the limited industrial district. That's the only concern I think we have.
Right, and I know how sometimes special permits are hard. Once we put them in to allow them, it's hard to deny them, and then we wind up in court. So this was an option. If we don't want contractor yards in this new area of zoning, we can put in language. If we're okay not putting it in and leaving it under the special permit, that also works.
Madam Chair?
Councilor Doucette.
Excuse me, I would rather see it as a requirement not to include contractor yard, but I leave it to the counselor of the ward as far as what his opinion would be. Thank you.
Comments from the ward councilor, so I will let Councilor Brown speak.
Thank you, Madam Chair. So I have spoken with one of the residents who lives close by, so this is just really the only person who gave me any feedback after they attended the planning meeting and maybe spoke with you a little bit. They do understand that something will happen at this property. It's the Welton family, and they would really just like to see, like what the planning board had said, something that fits more in their neighborhood. And so that's, to me, sounds like what the planning board was speaking of. But as we move forward into the next steps, like go forward with the application, they just really, really want to see whatever would be the least impactful to the neighborhood. And so I do feel like putting in that new section E that the solicitor had recommended would probably be something I would support, or it would be something I would support.
Councilor Landers, did I see a hand?
Yes, thank you, Madam President. Quite honestly, I'd rather exclude contractors' yards, start now, and I can't see the need to have, allow contractors' yards in that particular area. For what reason? Make them more attractive for someone to buy them, or abuse them, or what? I think citywide, what we want to do is continue, have a designated contractor, landscaping yard, but clean it up. I mean, I ride around my Ward 7 now, and I see too many trucks, too many trailers with ladders stacked high and all kinds of, and those containers are the newest things I see. So I would say we're starting a new district here. Contractor situations exclude, especially out there. It's going to be a beautiful spot.
Is there discussion, Councilor Preciado?
Yeah, so my ward is also on the other side of Lizotte. I did speak to one of the constituents there right at the end of Lizotte, and they also had concerns regarding, especially regarding traffic, so I didn't think contractor yards would add to that. Plus, it just would be completely out of place in an area like that. If the developer is planning to preserve and really upkeep the area, I don't think a contractor is going to help keep that area, you know, the way the residents want that live around there. So I would also urge to add language into the document about excluding contractor yards.
All right, and are we comfortable then allowing the solicitor and Attorney Falk to work together on making that language so that it doesn't impact if the multifamily doesn't? I'm not sure how that'll work, but if you can come up with something, I think we would all understand that.
Through the chair, I have some ideas. I will botch it if I tried to draft it on the fly right now. But the concept is essentially, if we move forward with what the overlay would allow here, which is multifamily by special permit, then the prohibition on contractors' yards in this area would take effect. And if we don't move forward with the multifamily by special permit for whatever reason, which is it's the only new use that's allowed in this overlay district. It's essentially an overlay district allowing multifamily by special permit, and that's the only new use that would be here. If for some reason we don't move forward with that, then the underlying zoning would remain in effect. That's the idea. So that essentially we'll find some trigger. It's, you know, the first application for a building permit for a multifamily dwelling or something along those lines, then the new E would take effect, and that's it. Contractors' yards are off the table.
Okay, so we will look for that. I will just make a note that we need a motion from someone. Councilor Doucette?
Thank you, Madam Chair. I have a follow-on motion to discuss after this one, but let's finish on this one first.
Okay, do you want?
Motion to approve as discussed.
Okay, so move to agree to add in a new section E, prohibited uses, with language agreed to by Attorney Falk and the solicitor. Is there further discussion on that from the committee? If not, all those in favor? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Okay. And you have something along these lines or something further in that we can get to?
It would be another amendment of similar topic.
Okay.
Basically, I was having a conversation with Dr. Fenby in the planning board, and it would be an interesting incentive for this and possibly the Donald Lynch Boulevard as well to basically allow the technology of geothermal by right. The advantage of using geothermal energy is it taps into the local energy within the community. It's not imported of any type. And this would be basically, yeah, you can go do this and, you know, allow the technology. There's already incentives in place. We just give them a possible good nudge. So I would like to see, in similar to how we had a conversation about excluding contractor yards, I would say I'd like to see a similar, topic of including geothermal by right. So one negative, one plus.
I guess I would discourage that. I don't think there's anything in the code that prohibits geothermal. We are a green community, and the code would encourage.
Right, encourage.
Geothermal. That can be a discussion when we get to the special permit process.
Okay.
I don't know, even with this new stretch code that they're pushing for communities to adopt, if geothermal is mandated.
Right.
Attorney Falk, are you aware, are they at that point yet?
I'm not aware of that, no. And I would suggest it's again, another topic that's best for the special permit process, because that's when you're actually getting into what's going to be built and how it's, different conditions of approval. Whereas, I mean, allowing geothermal by right as a zoning use, I mean, we don't have any issue with that, whether we did it or not. But if the intent is to, through zoning, require the use of geothermal, I don't know that that would work as a zoning provision. You can check with the city solicitor on that.
Geothermal's not even a use per se in our code.
Madam Chair?
So, Councilor Doucette.
Thank you very much. I appreciate the correction. More importantly, I gave you guys a heads up that we're interested in having something like this looking down the pike. So I appreciate the conversation. Thank you.
Okay. All right, we will get to what would now be F, and all of the rest of this going down the line would be a change to match the new number, the new letter. Affordable housing, notwithstanding any provisions in the zoning ordinance to the contrary, development of multifamily dwellings in the LDOD shall be subject to the affordable housing standards of 65026. And I know at the planning board, there was discussion on affordable housing. I did send them some information about affordable housing and the state and the HUD's numbers for Marlborough, where we stand. It is, as we always say, it's affordable is a misnomer, but actually reading in HUD, if you use affordable, there's a very specific terminology where it's that you are not spending more than 30% of your income on housing, which was new to me. I'm not sure how many people fit that in Marlborough. Any questions on affordable housing? Dimensional standards, notwithstanding any provisions in the zoning ordinance to the contrary, development in the LDOD shall be subject to the dimensional standards of the limited industrial district. We're all okay with that? And we already have the language that allows us to modify the special permit. Landscaping regulations, notwithstanding any provisions in the zoning landscape to the contrary, development in the LDOD shall be subject to the landscaping regulations of 650-47, provided, however, that 650-40-F8 and 650-18A and 9 shall not apply to development in the LDOD. Any questions? And I was actually going to look those two up, and then I totally forgot. So anybody want to know what those are? Attorney Falk?
Sure, I'm happy to offer. These are provisions, and this has caught a number of multifamily developers off guard. They're provisions in the ordinance that have been there for quite a while that essentially require a flat lawn area equivalent to the floor area, the square footage of each building. It's sort of an old-fashioned way of doing multifamily. You see some of the apartments out on Route 20 East and near the airport have these, where it's essentially large lawn areas between the buildings, which, whether they're used or not, it usually doesn't keep up with the way people do open space now and recreational amenities. It just tends to be ultimately wasted space. Probably would have been better if you had left woods in the back and cut the lawns down a little bit. So they're still there, and they're there, and they apply to multifamily projects that aren't in an overlay district, essentially. So the neighborhood business district where Alta French Hill is going up, this doesn't apply. Green District, this doesn't apply. A number of of the new multifamily communities in Marlborough, this doesn't apply. So this is just having that same approach here with this project.
Everybody's okay with that, Councilor Preciado?
About that, you mentioned that a lot of these projects, or it would be better if you just cut those lawns into little parcels. Would that be allowed at all under this?
So cut them into...
So you suggested it'd be better if they were smaller parcels of green space and preserve some of the woods instead of making a huge patch of grass that some people might not use. Is that something that we could modify for them to be able to do something like that, or is that something that you can do on your own? Or
Yeah, I mean, it's through the chair. It's certainly something at the special permanent site plan stage we can look at in terms of what are the recreational amenities that be available to residents. You know, we're all for that. If this is just through zoning, you don't have an option. You have to have these large lawn areas, which, I mean, they're kind of fallen in disfavor in terms of this type of development. So taking this out means we don't have to come in, sorry, we have this big lawn area and this is what the zoning requires. Instead, we can come in and the language that you mentioned before, where we've got flexibility on open space and recreational space, we can work with you on what the plans are gonna look like.
Yeah, it would be a shame to just clear cuts in an area just to follow this zoning amendment, but I would like that. I would like to see that. Thank you.
Good. Counselor Oram?
Thank you, Madam Chair. Through you to the applicants. So when you're looking at this, I agree with you. The less lawn, the less pesticides and other processes that we use, or processes when we handle lawn care. But are you looking to reduce the square footage if it, say, turns into open space, wooded area and so forth? Are you looking to reduce that square footage that you're required to do with the lawn?
So the square footage of what are you referring to?
You were mentioning the square footage of the floor space within the building would match the level lawn area. Are you looking to come in and ask for a reduction in that square footage that could have been a lawn, but you're looking to replace it with the woods or other open space criteria?
So this leaves in place the existing open space, non-building area requirements of the ordinance. We would have to comply with that. I think it's 60% green space or 50% green space. We have to maintain that. This provision, it wouldn't even, if you had an equivalent area of woods, essentially, that wouldn't count. It's got to be available for recreational use. It's got grade requirements. It can't be, it's essentially a large flat lawn is what this calls for. So we're just eliminating that mandatory requirement that we have to come in with this large flat lawn. And instead, you know, it's up to the council, but we still have minimum green space that we have to have on the project.
And I'm not in disagreement in any way with having less lawn. I just want to make sure we still keep the open space to the degree that would have included the lawn space at the same time.
Sure.
Thank you. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Anybody else? Okay. Parking regulations. Notwithstanding any provisions in the zoning ordinance to the contrary, development in the LDOD shall be subject to the off-street parking regulations of 650-48, provided, however, that the minimum parking requirement for multifamily dwellings in the LDOD shall be 1 space per unit.
Madam Chair?
Councilor Doucette.
Thank you. So 1 space per unit, which is different than 1 space per bedroom, correct? How many bedrooms? What's the mix of bedrooms?
Nope, it's 1 space per unit, so 250 units total.
Right.
There
Should
would
that
be-
be, my question is, should it be bedrooms versus units?
I'm sorry, should it be what?
Bedrooms versus units.
I think that we typically have it per unit. I'd have to go look at 650-48 to see what parking is. I know,
If I may, it varies quite a bit from district to district, and the underlying, it's sort of a complicated equation, which requires a certain level of guest parking. Again, sort of a throwback to an older version of the way multifamily projects were done in the 70s or 80s. Our concept plan right now is showing, again, it's a concept plan, but what we put together to put the petition together shows 188 dwelling units and I think 330 parking spaces.
333.
333. So again, conceptual, but right now we're looking at it would be more like 1.5 to 1.7 per unit, which is industry standard, tied to the unit rather than bedrooms.
so do we want to increase the 1 to
Chair?
1.75? Counselor,
Keep the conversation going.
Counselor
Yeah.
Landers?
Madam Chair, I would definitely go towards 1.5, 1.7. I tell you, these are gonna be condos, and that means they're gonna be owner-owned. And there's probably gonna be 2 people living there making the mortgage on these condos, right? And if there's 2 people working there to make the mortgage payments, probably gonna be 2 cars. So I would definitely, I'm not sure I'd go for 2 parking places per unit, but certainly more than one, and maybe, as the attorney mentioned, 1.5, 1.7?
Anybody else? Councilor Preciado.
I would agree on increasing the number of parking units, especially since this area is not accessible other than by a car. There's no way to commute there. There's no bike trails. There's nothing. There's also the amount of people that would be visiting Lake Williams out there as well. So I would highly push for more parking spots. I mean, the communities all around have been in an uproar regarding parking spots and new developments. So just make sure that's
Councilor
suitable.
Doucette.
Thank you very much, Madam Chair. There's actually one other way to get there, which is the brand-new Lake Williams Boardwalk, which, thank you, Councilor Landers, on that one. But anyway, I think that I propose that we change the parking to be 1.5. I think there's enough support for that within the council.
1.5, is that what you said?
1.5.
1.5. All right, it is Councilor Ossing.
Yeah, so I wouldn't do it to 1.5 because you are gonna make this a parking mecca, and I don't think you wanna have the whole place paved, but that's just my opinion. I wouldn't be supporting that.
My understanding, there are already 3 parking lots in existence. So you're going to build, well, one building's already built, 2 other buildings would be built around the current parking lots with potential of removing some of them, but
If
not
I may,
adding.
Counselor, I am comfortable agreeing to 1.5 spaces per unit. That much I'm sure we'll be able to meet. It may be that we even get to 1.7 or 1.75. The parking spaces are already there. We're putting buildings on top of already impervious pavement. So whatever parking's left over, we're going to designate them to the units accordingly. With that being said, I am comfortable with 1.5 as a ratio. That much I know we'll be able to get to, and that's a nationally recognized standard.
Councilor Preciado?
Yeah, how many parking spots do you have right now available for that?
So
proposal.
in terms of the site that doesn't include the future construction of the 2 new buildings, I believe it's around 470, around there. So we'll be losing about 150 spots. 100, yeah.
But it should.
So there's a lot of
You think
pavement.
it should be adequate for the amount of units?
Absolutely.
Okay.
All right, so it's been moved to change 1 to 1.5. Is there further discussion? All those in favor? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. All right, so that one carries. We're now at modifications. After approval, applicants may seek modifications to any approved special permit or site plan approvals, special permits. Major modifications to a special permit may be granted by a vote of the city council, and minor modifications to a special permit may be granted by the building commissioner. The building commissioner shall have jurisdiction to determine whether a requested modification to a special permit is major or minor. In general, a minor modification shall not produce more than a material increase in the scale of a project, nor produce a material increase in impact on city services, the environment, or the neighborhood. Where the effect of a modification to a special permit is quantifiable, by way of example only, modifications to building size or location, parking count or location, or other such quantifiable modifications, it shall be presumed minor if the quantifiable effect does not result in a 10% or greater variation from the applicable approval, provided, however, that said modification would not result in a violation of any provisions of this section. If it is determined that a modification to a special permit is not minor, per Section 650-59 of the zoning ordinance, an application for a revised special permit shall be filed, and a public hearing shall be held in the same manner as required for a new application. Number 3, site plan approval. Major modifications to a site plan approval may be granted by the vote of the site plan committee, and minor modifications to a site plan approval may be granted by the building commissioner. The building commissioner shall have jurisdiction to determine whether a requested modification to a site plan approval is major or minor. In general, a minor modification shall not produce more than a material increase in the scale of a project, nor produce a material increase in impact on city services, the environment, or the neighborhood, where the effect of a modification to a site plan approval is quantifiable. By way of example, only modifications to building size or location, parking count or location, or other such quantifiable modification. It shall be presumed minor if the quantifiable effect does not result in a 10% or greater variation from the applicable approval, provided, however, that said modification would not result in a violation of any provision of this section. If it is determined that a modification to a site plan approval is not minor, an application for a revised site plan approval shall be filed in accordance with the City Council rules for site plan approval. And then our last page is the revised map. So that covers the amended language. Does anybody have any questions, anything further that they want to discuss? Counselor? Excuse me, Counselor Vital.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I just want everyone to kind of remember this when we're talking about parking. Lazard Drive is about 0.3 of a mile long. St. Mary's Credit Union is on the left, the ballpark's on the right, and particularly at ball games, they'll park on both sides of Lazard Drive. Lazard Drive is a very wide street. You will be able to park on both sides of that road for 0.2 of a mile going up. I don't know how many parking spaces that is, but I would suspect it's probably around 40 to 60 parking spaces just on Lazard Ave. And it would still give you plenty, it wouldn't be a safety concern or anything since the road is so wide. So parking, I don't think is going to be that big of an issue.
You are correct on the parking. Unless it does become an issue, then it would be Traffic Commission's discussion to not allow parking on one side or the other, but I haven't been to a baseball game in a long time, but I don't remember Lazat being terribly busy with parking. I think it's becoming more so now with the courthouse not being used during the day, usable during the day. Councilor Doucette.
Thank you very much, Madam Chair. At some point, when we talk about the special permit, I would like to see some sort of lighting system that addresses Lazat Drive and William Street, because the Lazat Drive is going to have its own major inflow of traffic, because you're talking about 200 units, so that's a significant inflow. But there is a nasty secret that Forest Street, Clover Hill to Brigham gets you to the other side of town. And I use that, or I had used that all the time. There is a huge amount of Brigham Street traffic, which basically starts at Forest Street and Clover Hill and just meanders through, the southwest side of the city and avoids all the traffic through lights and stuff like that. It's a beautiful ride, done it plenty of times. So I think that the lighting between that and Lazat is only going to get chronically worse. So I'd like to see some sort of lighting system addressing that area. That's all I needed to say. Thank you.
I'm going to guess there will be a traffic management plan that would come to us as part of the special permit package. I don't know how far. I believe Brigham Street got discovered when Route 85 was being redone, and Waze, in its infinite wisdom, chose that as the way to have people avoid, and I think for some people it's stuck. I walk that area a lot. I don't see a lot of traffic coming up from Brigham as I'm walking, and I walk Clover Hill. I don't see cars coming up Brigham, but I'm not there 24 hours a day like the residents are, so it could be that there are times, but I'm sure that that will be addressed.
Madam Chair.
Councilor
It's mostly
Doucette.
rush hour. Yeah, outside of rush hour, the roads are empty, but during rush hour, it can be hectic, and that's pretty much when I was doing it, because I was working on the other side of town. So I know that road well, and it's just, traffic has to address that connection. So just wanted to raise it now as an issue. You guys can take it from here. Thank you.
Thank you, and you are not the only one. I believe at the public hearing it got addressed or got raised. Councilor Navin.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Just a question, and again, this is probably something that's more for a special permit, but just to get some information, the parcel that you're purchasing, where does Jackson Drive fit on the parcel? I can't tell on the map because it's not there, because it's not a public way.
So just for clarification, we've already purchased the property.
Okay.
And where Jackson Drive is going to be on the southernmost point of our parcel.
Okay.
We own a little bit of the side St. Mary's is on of Jackson Drive. So Jackson Drive actually goes through our parcel completely.
Okay.
I know this isn't the best.
Yeah, no, that's helpful. That road is obviously not in the best of shape. I'm sure you guys know that well. But, I used to do a lot of drop-off at the daycare that was on the corner, and a lot of people go through there a couple of different times a day. And if you guys are gonna also have residents and whatnot, it's gonna need some significant attention. So just bring that up now, we'll bring it up again later.
And we can discuss that too when the special permit comes in, because especially if it's not going to be allowed to be the drop-off for the daycare center, if it's going to become a private piece of property. It is, but a new owner, so I think the,
I don't know if you can tell, I outlined it here, so the proposed new, one of the proposed new buildings would be here. This is that lower parking lot, and Jackson's down this way. So the development wouldn't have any impact per se on Jackson, but I understand the concern that Councilor Navin raised, and we had initial discussions with St. Mary's about that as well, because they have concerns about it as well.
I don't think a lot of people drive up Jackson just because it's not even marked as a street. It's just sort of a driveway that looks like it's related to the daycare center, but it could become more so, and it is pretty abandoned back in there. But again, we can have that discussion. Anybody else with other questions? Councilor Orm.
Thank you. I don't mean to be repeating myself, but when you look at section J, it says it shall be presumed minor if the quantifiable effect does not result in a 10% or greater variation. So I look back at section D and we're saying 250 units. I'm not for sure if they conflict with each other, as I asked before.
Madam Chair?
250,
Point of order, they don't conflict at all. 250 is set by the ordinance, Council Orem. You can't change it. The 10%, 100%, 200%.
Yeah.
250 is it. You can't change it. It has no impact on item I. How's that?
this language in item J,
Or item J, has no impact
Now,
on it.
J,
no
now it
impact,
would
even
be-
though it says quantifiable.
That is
But
correct.
it does say modifications to approved special permits or site plan approvals, not modifications to the ordinance.
Okay, so as
The
long as we know
ordinance
we're
is the
locked in.
ordinance.
Because there is a little conflict there in the way the language is written.
This language is in almost
Understandable,
every
and-
special permit that we have that allows site plan to fix something if when they look at the lot, they say, oh, the building needs to move a little bit, or we need to change the parking, or we need to change landscaping. Site
I
plan
understand.
can do that so long as it doesn't, and we as a council can do the special permit piece.
I believe I remember site plan increasing the amount of units in one of our approvals previously. And I'll look that up if you need it, but that's why I'm questioning it, because this happened while I was
Point
on
of
the-
information again. So again, that was the Green District, and they had to come back before the council to get approval
right.
for the
Thank you.
special
The
permit.
Green-
It was not, they can't change what's in the zoning ordinance. It's
Okay, so that was
fixed.
the Green District, because I did remember one, but it's different with the Green District, because that's a different zoning law than this one.
Right, and as I said, at some point when these are done, and they decide that they want more than 250, they could come back to ask for a modification to the overlay.
That's all. I just needed
Say
justification, because it
yes.
was the Green District. Thank you, Councilor Ossing, for reminding me of which one it was, and I was thinking that could be the same here. But if it was a different zoning law, then that's fine. Thank you,
So I
Madam
think
Chair.
we
Through the-
also,
I'm sorry, through the chair, just so with Green District, there are two different items. So this same language is in the Executive Residential Overlay District. So when Green District went from 475 units to 950 units, we had to come back and do a zoning amendment. There was another instance where Green District modified the balance of one-bedroom and two-bedroom within Phase 1 and Phase 2, and that was able to benefit from this language because the quantifiable difference was 10% or less. The building commissioner sent it to the council for, essentially as an FYI, so you knew about it, but we didn't do a whole hearing and we didn't modify the special permit. It was an administrative approval.
So you could have a bedroom increase, but we don't even know that yet. We'll wait for the concept plan and work on it at that time. Thank you. Thank you, Madam Chair.
You are welcome. Any other questions? Oh, good grief, Councilor Fucillo.
I will be brief. Thank you, Madam Chair. I don't mean to bring us back to parking because I do believe the 1.5 is absolutely sufficient. Just, I brought up the city code shortly after that conversation wrapped up, and just looking at the language that we have, I believe that for multifamily dwellings, 1 off-street parking space per dwelling unit plus 1 off-street parking space per bedroom. So that, I just think that's something to keep in mind going forward, but I do think the 1.5 suffices per unit. I just think that seeing this language, it's, I think it can be interpreted in different ways, but to see it say that we have 1 off-street parking space per dwelling plus 1 per bedroom is something definitely to keep in mind. Thank you, Madam Chair.
All right, so let's go back to parking that says, provided, however, the minimum parking requirements for multifamily dwellings shall be 1 space per unit, which is, as I've got the same language as he does, which is what it already says. It's, well, now we're making it 1.5, but it doesn't talk about in this the additional piece of the plus 1 off-street parking per bedroom. So does that automatically get added because it's in the code?
So as I read the way this is intended, or at least as we drafted it as intended, is that for multifamily in this district, it's 1.5 per unit, that the contrary language in 650-48 would not apply.
I'm sorry, is what? 650-48?
The language that Councilor Fucillo was reading would not apply. What would apply here for multifamily would be 1.5 per unit. That's our intention. If it would help, we could strike the reference to 650-48, which might raise some confusion in terms of what applies and what doesn't apply.
Right, because it says notwithstanding any provisions in the zoning to the contrary, it's subject to the off-street parking in 650-48, which would mean that it's subject to that line, number 7.
So perhaps we strike the language, notwithstanding any provisions in the zoning ordinance to the contrary, strike development through 650-48, and provide, however, so it would read, notwithstanding any provisions in the zoning ordinance to the contrary, the minimum parking requirement for multifamily dwellings in the LDOD shall be 1.5 spaces per unit.
Everybody get that? Is everybody okay with that? So it literally is 1.5 spaces per unit. It has nothing to do with the number of bedrooms. Councilor Doucette.
Well, I was just saying that's what I expected my proposal to be, so I'm fine with that.
All right, everybody else? Councilor Fucillo?
No, I just want to say thank you for the clarification. That was the only thing that was hanging me up, and I think if we can go ahead and put the language here in the overlay that says, hey, this is what it's going to be, and we don't have to really refer back to the code and have that kind of confusion, I think that's perfect.
Great. Absolutely.
Thank you.
All right. So once again, parking regulations will read, notwithstanding any provisions in the zoning ordinance to the contrary, the minimum parking requirement for multifamily dwellings in the LDOD shall be 1 space per unit. Did I get that right?
1.5.
I mean, sorry, I've got it circled and I didn't read it, 1.5. Okay. So we'd already all agreed with the original to 1.5. Do you want to take a vote to make sure that we're all okay, or are we just okay? All right. So we have a document that has been amended and amended again by us. I think I've got all the notes. Anybody ready to make a motion?
Motion to approve as amended?
All right, Counselor Doucette has moved to approve the Lizotte Drive Overlay District language as amended. It's been moved and seconded. Is there further discussion?
Just a question,
Councilor
Madam Chair.
Landis.
You hope to report this out on the 22nd of July, and we'll vote on it that night?
That's the plan, yes. I will make sure that the solicitor's office has the changes that we've agreed to. Counselor, Attorney Falk will work with the solicitor to get that specific language on the prohibited use, and then we will see it for the first time on the agenda for the 22nd. There won't be an opportunity for us to review it. Hopefully, it's what we want. If there are any further changes, we can deal with them, but I think we should be okay.
If it was the winter, we'd worry about a snowstorm. What we got to be careful of is a lightning storm. We don't have a meeting. I'm only kidding.
Yes, we should be good. The plan is to move forward. All right, is there further discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So that carries 5 to nothing. I will make sure that this is written up off to the solicitor, and you can reach out to him this week or next and deal with the language.
Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. Look forward to getting this one done. All right, we're going to take a quick break while they leave. If anybody needs a break, we can take it before we begin the next. Otherwise, I'm just going to move right into the next order on our agenda, which is number 24, 109-147, a proposed zoning amendment to Chapter 650 zoning to create the Donald Lynch Boulevard District. President Ossing was part of this. He is here, so if there are, I know he did suggest a amendment, which we can bring up. Ms. Harris, if you would like to come to the well, if you want, or are you comfortable sitting back there if you have questions? Stay? Okay, she's comfortable staying where she is. All right, I got to switch all my paperwork here so I can get the next letter from the planning board up. All right. Planning board letter regarding, let's see, June 20th, regarding council number 24-109-147, proposed zoning amendment to Chapter 650 to add a new section to create Donald Lynch Boulevard. Honorable President Ossing and councilors, at its regularly scheduled meeting on June 17th, 2024, the planning board took the following action. On a motion by Dr. Finby, seconded by Mr. LaVenture, the board voted to send a favorable recommendation to the City Council on the above referenced proposed zoning amendment for the following reasons. The board agreed the proposed zoning change is in keeping with the character of the neighborhood. The current zoning of this district was intended to drive people to a vibrant destination in the city. The consensus of the board was that the proposal was consistent with this original intent. The board agreed that the proposed change would not negatively impact the neighbors. The board agreed that the proposed zoning change could benefit the city if it were able to encourage development options that are not readily available throughout the city, developments like multi-sport facilities, outdoor cafes, and entertainment establishments. The board's consensus was the proposed zoning change is keeping with the intent and purposes of the current zoning while allowing additional amenities. Additionally, the board suggested the following: allow special permit relief in building height for specific uses such as multi-sport facilities that would require at least an 80-foot interior ceiling height to be viable. Encourage green space in front of buildings where possible. Encourage porous pavement where appropriate and possible. Ensure pedestrian and cyclist accessibility and safety. And sustain the vibrant destination concept by avoiding warehousing and storage and encouraging restaurants, retail, housing, and recreation establishments. The vote was 6-0. So we all received, I believe, not only the document in the packet, but we had received a letter from the receiver for the mall with some proposed changes. So as we go through this, I do want to incorporate their comments so that we can talk about them. I also want to stress that the last day to act on this one is August 19th, which is when we have a city council meeting in the month of August. So we don't need to get this done tonight. We could potentially have a meeting on July 15th. I'm out, I leave on Wednesday, I'm out till the 14th. That doesn't sound right, but the Monday in July, we could bring this back to finalize it. That would allow me to report it out at the July 22nd meeting and not have to do what we're doing tonight for Lizotte and have the solicitor have to have it on an agenda without it being referred officially. But we'll see where we get to. It is 8 o'clock. There's a lot of language in this and the table of use regulations combined. There's a lot of work that got put into this document. So I will be going from what was in the packet. So let's see. Pursuant to Section 5 of Chapter 48 of the General Laws, be it ordained that the City Council, Chapter 650, as most recently amended, be further amended to add Section 657 entitled Districts Enumerated is hereby amended by deleting the first sentence, the number 14, and inserting in place thereof the number 15, and by inserting at the end of the list of district types the following: Donald Lynch Boulevard District. So unlike the Lizotte Drive overlay, this is not an overlay. This is a new specific zoning with the list in the zoning table of uses specific to the area impacted by the map. Chapter 650 is hereby amended in 650 Attachment 1, Table of Uses, by inserting the highlighted portions and text of Exhibit A attached to this order, inserting under the heading entitled Zoning District Abbreviations, a new zoning district as follows: DLB, and beneath the new district abbreviation DLB column, the text as shown on said Exhibit A. Chapter 650 is hereby amended by inserting into 650 Attachment 2, 650-41, entitled Table of Lot Areas, Yards, and Heights of Structures for the DLB, the text as shown in the highlighted portion of Exhibit B attached to this order. And Chapter 650, Article 6, entitled Special Districts, Overlays, and Special Requirements, is hereby amended by inserting a new section 650-39A entitled Donald Lynch Boulevard District, DLB, which shall read as follows. Purposes and objectives, Section A. The purpose and objectives of the Donald Lynch Boulevard District are to enhance land use development and encourage desired growth patterns for the benefit of the public health, safety, and welfare, and the economic development objectives of the city. The vision for the Donald Lynch Boulevard District is to strengthen the vitality of the district by encouraging uses, activities, and improvements that will complement the existing assets. Each new investment should be viewed as an opportunity to complement existing uses, add new destinations and attractions, and strengthen a district that provides a variety of compelling reasons to visit, whether it be to work, shop, play, or live. The vision shall be achieved through a mix of uses defined by the Donald Lynch Boulevard District and the composition of each new investment, including the site design and building design, the relationship of the investment to the surrounding context. Each new investment shall enhance the sense of place that helps to define a recognizable district identity and create an attractive and comfortable environment where people feel invited to visit again. The site design, building design, and design of the circulation system shall strengthen the walkability of the district by defining district nodes, not nodes, and compact centers of activity in the district. This may include using buildings to define shared outdoor spaces, creating safe and convenient pedestrian and bicycle paths that connect to abutting properties and amenities, creating new outdoor spaces and seating areas, and adding new investments in the landscape of the district. The site design, building design, and design of site infrastructure shall enhance the natural assets and sustainability of the district through enhanced landscape, with an emphasis on adding shade trees and investment in green infrastructure and low-impact development techniques and a strengthened connection to natural assets, such as the Assabet River and a connected network of open spaces. Comments, questions, concerns with the language of the purpose and objectives? Site plan review, projects within the Donald Lynch Boulevard Overlay District. That should not say overlay, because this is not an overlay. Shall be subject to site plan review as provided in section 270-2 of the City Code. Applicability site plan review applies to both as of right and uses available by grant of a special permit within the Donald Lynch Boulevard District. Site plan review applicability includes, but is not limited to, new construction of any building or structure, addition to an existing building or structure, and increase in area of on-site parking or loading areas. B, site plan review shall be conducted administratively as provided in section 270-2, except for those projects over 10,000 square feet, which projects shall undergo administrative site plan review with final review and approval by the City Council. C, the City Council may elect to vary the dimensional and parking requirements of this section by special permit or site plan approval if, in its opinion, such change shall result in an improved project and will not nullify or substantially derogate from the intent or purpose of this section. This authority continues subsequent to occupancy. And here's where we get to some suggestions from the mall. D, dimensional requirements. The Donald Lynch Boulevard District shall be subject to the dimensional standards in accordance with Article 7 of the zoning ordinance. They are suggesting we strike as described for the limited industrial district and adding in specified in the table of lot areas, yards, and height of structures. The dimensional requirements shall not apply to interior lot lines or municipal boundary lines within a development lot in the Donald Lynch Boulevard District. The following exceptions may be granted by special permit by the City Council. So my question on this one was the term development lot. And trying to do a quick search in the code got me nowhere, but talking to the solicitor got me my answer. It is actually in the code, and a development lot is the land depicted on a plan accompanying the application for a building permit for a shopping mall and encompassing the individual lots on which the shopping mall will be constructed and operated. So that's why there's all this change in here specific to a development lot, because it's specific to the mall, and then would not cover anywhere else in the new district because there is no other mall. So is everybody okay with the suggested amendments by the attorney working with the owners, the receivers of the mall? I sent this to the solicitor. He didn't have any issues, so.
If I could,
Counselor
Madam Chair, so
Austin?
as long as the solicitor's okay with it, I mean, I went through their comments. They seem specific to the mall. I'm hoping that the mall changes some of its uses, that some of these may not be applicable to, but, you know, if the solicitor thinks they're okay, I'm good with them. Otherwise, if, you know, we acknowledge them. If we need to change them, we could change them later. But, you know, if we want to go through some of them now, and you think they have merit, then I'm good. But they're really targeted specifically for the mall. And I'm not sure if we nitpick it just to the mall, we lose the impact of what we're trying to do for the entire district area. But
I believe just reading the letter, looking at the maps that they sent us of the mall, I think their concerns are they don't own part of the property.
Yep.
They only own part of the property within Marlborough line, which pretty much splits the mall in half horizontally, I guess, lengthwise. So it's saying that for everybody else, they're subject to the standards in the table of lot, but the mall is not because it doesn't really fit them. There is no, I guess, we could argue that we could make it fit them, but I think their concern is that they already have buildings there
Right.
that might not fit, and they have green space and parking lots that don't fit, so. Counselor
Yeah,
Landers?
thank you, Madam Chair. That's what concerns me. I happened to be out there today and did some riding around, some walking around. What makes that whole project, and I had a question for you, Mr. President, what the hell was it now? It gets complicated because you have the four owners of the major stores, Sears, JCPenney's, and Max. And so you're dealing with them. Then you're dealing with the owner, it's not Simon anymore, but you're dealing with the owner of the mall. Who else are we dealing with? I mean, it seems like every building has a different realtor on it. And so for this to move forward, I think what not concerns me, maybe competition's good, they're gonna be fighting each other to get tenants in there in the next 3 to 5 years. It seems like it's a little bit different than Natick Mall. Natick Mall has come, I think the circus has finally left, but the circus has been there for and I never got to it, got there about the last 10 days. But that's what they're doing. I don't know if that was the mall, I'm not sure. But I don't know, am I right in assuming, again, Madam Chair, to the President, is there going to be keen competition, or are we going to end up being the losers? What I want, next 5 years, I want every building to be occupied with quality tenants.
That's the goal. What we're trying to do is improve the ability or the uses for the area so that whoever decides to build on them, and Sears may not sell, JCPenney may not sell, Macy's may not, I don't know what they're gonna do, but I wanna give them the opportunity to expand their ability for uses to things that I haven't thought of yet, but I let them think of it. I don't wanna tell them what to put in there. That's not my job.
Yeah. See, I even walked around Sears this morning, the old Sears building. That's quite a big building there. And then they have that smaller unit, that's where they used to do the oil changes and tires and stuff like that. Is that gonna attract someone, like Sullivan Tire or something like that? I'm not sure how that's gonna play out. It's gonna be very, very interesting. All I want is that we make out the city. That's what I want.
And we can rezone this and nothing could happen for the next 5 years, and then all of a sudden, boom, it could start happening. As we know, and the mall has said, they don't own those 2 anchor stores, or 3. But they could decide to change what they have to become something else, or they could sell. But the language is allowing them to not have to meet those lot lines because they really can't or might not be able to.
And if I could, Madam Chair, the Sears Auto Place is in Berlin. It's not even in Marlborough, so this has nothing to do with.
Yeah, that's what I figured out today, yeah.
Another one of those. All right, continuing on, then the other change that they have is in number 1, which reads no minimum lot area, reduced minimum lot frontage of 50 feet, reduced minimum side yard of 10 feet, reduced minimum front yard of 30 feet, reduced minimum rear yard of 15 feet, and increased maximum lot coverage of, they are asking 85% instead of 80, shall be allowed and applicable to a new parcel subdivided from an existing parcel deleting the words "with the subdivision located at the street frontage of the property." The property subject to subdivision shall retain the minimum lot area of 2 acres and the minimum lot frontage of at least 200 feet with the removal of the subdivided lot. A subdivided lot will not impact setbacks or lot coverage of the property subject to subdivision. Access to the subdivided lot should be coordinated with other site circulation to limit the number of curb cuts to the main roadway and establish shared secondary access roads where feasible. And remember, this is all language that says the following exceptions may be granted by special permit, so they're not just a given by right.
And if I could, Madam Chair, the 80% was to help improve the green space area, because we have now, with this district, the ability to modify the parking requirements. So, I mean, as you know now, the mall is paved quite extensively. We can now limit that. So the intent was to try to shrink some of that. If you want to put it back to 85, I guess I'm okay, but the intent there was to try to drive it to 80 so that we could improve some of the green space and amenities for paths and stuff throughout the mall area, if you would.
Anybody else with comments? 5% doesn't seem like a lot to me. I don't really know if there was something specific, and I don't remember there being specific comments in the letter that we got given along with the changes.
Madam Chair?
I'm sorry, Councilor Preciado?
I would agree with Councilor Ossing and just keep it at 80. There's no reason to bump it up 5%. Just like there's no reason to keep it down 5%. I mean, I think less is better, honestly, for this whole place. Like, you do have a point. There's a lot of parking area in that, a lot of asphalt. It'd be nice to keep 5% more.
I would agree. So 80% shall be allowed and applicable to a new parcel subdivided from an existing parcel, period. Everybody's okay with the strike of with the subdivision located at the street frontage of the property? I think they're trying to decide if we want to subdivide something that's not at the front but at the back. All right, so we're going to keep 80%. Is everybody okay with, do you want votes on this one also, or are we okay with just, Councilor Doucette?
Motion to approve amendment?
All right, it's been moved to approve, to keep 80% and do the other changes in the dimensional requirement language as proposed by the mall receiver. All those in favor? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Okay. All right, the language does not change, but number 2 reads, maximum building height in the Donald Lynch Boulevard shall not exceed 60 feet. The maximum height is allowed by right and is not subject to distance from a residential zone. Note, mechanical and elevator equipment, chimneys, or other utilities are not limited to the maximum building height. Mechanical shall be screened to the maximum extent feasible from view from street level and integrated with the architectural style and materials of the building. Screening of mechanicals are not limited to the maximum building height. So this might be where we could add, although I think he's also suggested we add it in the zoning chart that's called, whatever it's called, 65041. But we could also add it in here, the language about the height.
Madam Chair?
Counselor Doucette.
Thank you very much, Madam Chair. So basically, instead of being 60 feet, it would be 80 interior ceiling height in the case of what was being proposed by the planning board.
Well, if you saw the email today from Counselor Ossing, he's suggesting that we amend. There is on the chart what has the Donald Lynch Boulevard added in and all of the height limits. There's a number 18 next to it, and 18 reads, within the Donald Lynch Boulevard, special permits may allow for all of that stuff that I just read before. And then within the Donald Lynch Boulevard, special permits may allow for a maximum height of up to 60 feet. Adding in by Councilor Ossing, additional relief in building height for specific uses such as multi-sport facilities may be allowed by special permit. And elimination of the distance from a residential zone requirement in determining maximum height. So it is already a suggestion from Councilor Ossing to add it into that table, which specifies all of the heights with a special permit,
I'm fine with that.
which really just repeats.
So, yeah,
Councilor Ossing?
thanks, Madam Chair. So I was trying to accommodate the planning board. They attended the planning board meeting. They went to some mall somewhere that had converted it to a sports complex that had a higher roof for an indoor facility. And they said, hey, if we can do that, the 60 feet would limit the indoor facility. So could they recommended, as you saw in their letter, can they have a hall pass on indoor sports facilities regarding the height of the structure? So I was trying to find a way. We don't have to do this now. We can do it if someone comes in with a sports facility. We can always amend the zoning at that point in time. I just thought in order to accommodate, the planning board did a lot of work. A lot of their suggestions are really, as with the last one, special permit type ones. This one would be a zoning change that you would have to take up. We wouldn't be able to get away with it through a special permit. That's why I was putting the language in there that would allow us to have some wiggle room to extend the height if we want to, for a sports-related facility. I mean, because if you open it up to everything, you know, next thing you know, there's a skyscraper down there, and then nobody's happy. So that's why I targeted to what the planning board wanted, which was a sports facility.
And he did not specify a height in his. It's just additional relief for specific uses such as multi-sport facilities may be allowed by special permit. So when the special permit came in, we could have that discussion. Which is, the solicitor may disagree. I mean, when we ask him to put this in proper form, he may want to have language in here, but because it is kind of confusing, it says the following exceptions may be granted by special permit, but 2 is the maximum height by right, not special permit. So maybe there is the need to add in that sentence in this section also, so that it is by special permit of the city council, you can increase it.
And again, I would let the solicitor wait. If the Urban Affairs feels it's a worthy comment to, or amendment, then let the solicitor figure out the best way to word it.
Is everybody okay with the concept of allowing by special permit height to let them have that baseball not hit the roof of the building as it flies from the batter? All right, so we'll make a note. Do we need a vote, or are we just consensus going to do it? Okay. I'll just make myself a note there. All right, parking, curb cut, and landscaping requirements. There is a couple of changes that they are asking for, except as otherwise provided in this section. Parking, circulation, and landscape requirements shall conform with the provisions of 650-47, 650-48, and 650-49 in the zoning ordinance. Again, the language on a development lot, the requirements below shall only apply to that portion of the development lot which is proposed to be redeveloped. So I think they're saying, which certainly makes sense, and I think is their comment that they've got in a couple of places, they don't want to have to meet the code unless something's being redeveloped, which makes sense to me, that we don't mandate it. You're considered you're considered pre-existing non-conforming. We don't make you change anything unless you're changing the use. So everybody's okay with that sentence being added to there? And then in number 1, general in the Donald Lynch Boulevard District, adequate off-street parking shall be provided. The parking facilities provided should be used efficiently to minimize the area of land to be paved for this purpose. City Council may consider its discretion permitted reductions in the parking requirements for complementary or shared use of parking areas serving activities that have different peak demand times. It is the applicant's responsibility to determine and request a shared parking reduction for review by the City Council. The visual and environmental impact of large parking areas shall be reduced by breaking the total required parking into smaller parking areas that are integrated with the site design and landscape plan, and they're adding in for any new or redeveloped parking areas. Low-impact development techniques and green infrastructure shall be integrated within new or redeveloped parking areas. Is everybody okay with those changes? And then number 2, parking lot locations. Parking shall be located to the side and/or rear of all building structures unless on a development lot. Existing parking that is redeveloped as part of a redevelopment of a portion of a development lot located between a building and Donald Lynch Boulevard shall integrate enhanced landscaping into the parking area to reduce the visual impact of the parking through the addition of landscape islands and shade trees. Parking may be provided at ground level, underground, or in a parking garage. Parking garages can be freestanding or as part of a building that is dedicated to other permitted uses, but must be integrated with the surrounding site plan and oriented so as to maximize visual impact of the parking garage on surrounding uses. Are we okay with their adding in so that it's dealing with their development lot? Number 3, parking requirements. Parking in the Donald Lynch Boulevard District shall be provided at a maximum of 1 parking space per 250 square feet of net floor area for retail and restaurant uses. Parking for other commercial uses shall be provided at a minimum of 1 parking space per 350 square feet of net floor area. Parking for residential units shall be provided at a minimum of 1 parking space per unit. Number 4,
Madam Chair?
pedestrian and...
Madam Chair?
I'm sorry, Councilor Doucette?
Thank you very much, Madam Chair. For consistency of what we were discussing in the prior change, I would say we also change the 1 parking space per unit here to be 1.5.
Everybody okay with moving it to 1.5? This is,
Madam Chair.
Councilor Ossing.
So again, this is the whole district. This isn't just the little Lazat Drive type one. I would stay away from that because now my version, there is plenty of parking out there right now to park anything. So I'd say keep it at 1 because my goal is to eliminate asphalt, not add asphalt to the area out there. I don't see, 1,000-unit complexes coming before us at that place. But that's my opinion. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Any other comments? Councilor Oram.
I'm in total disagreement with what was just mentioned. I think it should be 1.5. We should be consistent. If I was a developer and came in here and I was told I have to have 1.5 parking spaces, but it's okay for someone else building a residential dwelling to be 1, we need to be consistent. And I agree with Councilor Doucette. It should be 1.5.
Did I see another hand? So, Councilor Doucette, did you have other comments to make?
Thank you, Madam Chair. Councilor Oram said, appreciate the compliment to my fellow councilor. I don't think I have to say anymore. Thank you.
All right. I guess my concern is it is the whole area, and so the potential for one of the other business offices to turn into residential is there. It's allowed. They might have an issue with one parking space per unit on the property, or
Madam
one and a
Chair.
half. Councilor Doucette.
Thank you much, Madam Chair. Having worked in many of these types of office buildings, I can assure you, they have much more parking, considering it was used previously offices, and the offices were significantly smaller. I don't think this is a major threshold going from office to home use. There's going to be plenty of parking for that. I think it's just an inconsistency in proposing it as a standard. We did it for one, we should do it for both.
All right. So it's been moved and seconded to change the one parking space to 1.5. Is there further discussion? Councilor Brown?
Thank you, Madam Chair. In considering this Donald Lynch Boulevard district, I feel like it is completely separate than the concept of what we're looking at with the overlay on Lizotte, and part of the vision of this district is like biking and walkability and more green space. So I would agree with President Ossing on the one parking space would be sufficient for this vision, and that it being a whole separate district like the Downtown Village District or the Wayside District. It's a separate concept for me versus the overlay that we're looking at on Lizotte. Thank you.
Anybody else with comments? I saw Councilor Preciado, then I'll get to you, Councilor Navin.
I know Councilor Doucette would like to be consistent, but I do agree with Councilor Tiona. It is a completely different district. I understand the vision of this project, and I think if we expand parking spots, it would completely detract from the whole purpose of keeping green space and making it walkable and all that stuff. So, if they need the space, I don't think they would need more parking spots. There's so much space out there. Anyway, yeah, I would keep it at one, just the way it is.
Councilor Navin?
Thank you, Madam Chair. Many of the same comments that Councilor Preciado just brought up. These are, right, consistency is important, but we do different zones because each zone has a different characteristic and a different goal for what we're trying to do. I mean, certainly would have liked to see more parking in the Downtown Village District. We've had these conversations. But out there, as the President mentioned, there is so much asphalt on Donald Lynch Boulevard. We have so much. We need to probably take up some asphalt. So I'm not necessarily sure, much like what we just saw in Lizotte, that the parking isn't there. I think it's fine to have this standard moving forward. So I don't think that this is about consistency per se, and I don't think it's critical to the success either for the developers or for people to be able to travel out in that area. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Anybody else? Councilor Landers?
Likewise, Madam President, I think one parking place is sufficient. And I think these are two different projects, or two different, what we're trying to do here, Lizotte Drive versus the Sophomores Pall Mall. So, I mean, I would leave it one parking place per.
Any further? Councilor Oram?
Yes, and I would just like to comment, we're not talking about the entire Donald Lynch Boulevard district. We're talking, as it says, parking for residential units. Now, if I'm a developer, I'm definitely going to rip up all that pavement and put some green space in there. But we're comparing apples to apples here, not Donald Lynch Boulevard to any other district. We're comparing this to a residential facility. So this is going to be a new facility built, or they're going to build it from the mall. Why are we treating residential units different in one location, no matter what the zoning, to another, especially if there's going to be issues with parking? We just heard the standards. So they build their lot, and all of a sudden they're parking on another owner's lot. I see issues with this, and I see issues if we're not going to be consistent with the word residential units. then we're not, in my view, being consistent. I think there's plenty of parking down there. I don't disagree with that. But we're talking about a residential unit, and there's going to probably be developers coming down to build residential units. I don't think the 1.5 will distract them. In my view, it's a standard, but it's up to the council. I'm a councilor, but I will vote against it if that's the case.
Madam Chair.
Councilor Doucette.
Thank you very much, Madam Chair. You're going to vote against the change to 1.5, Councilor Orm, or are you going to vote and support it?
If I through you, Madam Chair, I can answer.
Yes, he's not on urban, so.
Yeah, no,
Oh, you're not an urban, okay.
that's
I
why I
guess
was going to
he's
say I
saying
don't have a
he would-
vote tonight.
Okay, thank you for the clarification. I forgot
thank you,
about
Madam
Hope you
that. Sorry
won't
about that.
vote this down because of that one issue,
Okay,
but we'll
my apologies.
see. All right. Further
but I-
discussion?
Yes, thank you, Madam Chair. I think, as Councilor Orm said, the intent of this is just to focus on housing parking. And if they take a parking, if they take a parking space and convert it to housing, they got to provide some sort of units associated with that building. If, and don't get me wrong, big fan of bicycle for commuting and all that. But I think from a very pragmatic perspective, if it's going to be multi-bedroom, multi-unit, it's not going to be single bedroom studio type thing, then you're going to end up with, many cases, 2 cars per unit, which is why I think the 1.5 should be enforced strictly, as Councilor Orm said, for the housing side. The rest, there is plenty, but there has to be something assigned for housing, and this is where I wanted this to be consistent. So, thank you.
All right, I think we have heard from all the members of the committee. I'm going to ask for a vote. It's been moved to change 1 parking space per unit to 1.5. All those in favor? All those opposed? 3, 4. So the motion does not carry. We will get to the next section, which is pedestrian and bicycle friendly. Vehicle, pedestrian, and bicycle features shall be designed to promote connectivity. Curb cuts shall be minimized and shared between multiple parking areas and uses. Bicycle parking shall be provided for all new developments and shall be located as close as possible to the building entrances. Number 5, location of landscaped islands in parking areas. Landscaped islands with shade trees shall be contained within or project into a parking lot and be so located that some part of every parking space is not more than 90 feet from a landscaped area on the perimeter or interior of the parking lot. Everybody okay with that section? All right, we'll get to design standards. The following design standards apply to all developments within the Donald Lynch Boulevard District, with the new language, except where a development is proposed on a development lot, in which case the design standards shall only apply to that portion of the development lot which is proposed for redevelopment. Everybody's okay with that added clarity there? Site layout. Buildings shall be located to define shared outdoor spaces in coordination with adjacent buildings located on the same property or on abutting property and the design of the surrounding landscape. B, site and parking layout. Parking shall not be the dominant feature of a site plan. Parking shall be one of the components integrated into a cohesive site and landscape design. Large parking lots shall be broken into smaller separated parking areas or through the use of islands and landscape. Landscape features such as the plantings and beams shall be used to reduce the visual impact of parking and define shared outdoor spaces that are integrated with other features of the site. Pedestrian circulation shall be integrated into the design of the parking. C, sustainability and green infrastructure. Sustainability and green infrastructure shall be integrated into the site layout and features in a meaningful way. Approaches may include protecting and retaining existing vegetation, supporting biodiversity, integrating low-impact stormwater management techniques, reducing impervious surfaces, and reducing water use for irrigation.
Madam Chair?
Councilor Doucette?
Thank you very much, Madam Chair. So I have a proposal for a change. I'm not sure if it goes in C of its own self-standing. Basically, the sustainability and green infrastructure description here is very much focused on landscape or, property management-ish type things. I would like to see sustainability and green infrastructure related to energy, renewable energy use, and I'm not sure if that becomes an additional sentence under C, or does it become a D into itself?
Do you want to read what you're proposing?
I didn't, so it would be something effectively, renewable energy systems such as solar, geothermal, etc. Would be encouraged.
I think it could fit if we remove the "and" in front of reducing water use and just put "and" renewable energy such as solar, geothermal.
Yeah, I'm happy with that. Yeah,
I mean, it's, approaches may include, it's not saying they have to.
right, right.
Councilor Austin, do you have an issue with adding those as approaches?
Nope.
Okay, so we're getting rid of "and." So we don't even need to add the "are encouraged." There would just be
Yeah, in a meaningful way.
approaches may include, they're just a list of approaches to
Yes.
get to
Yeah.
green infrastructure.
Yep, I'm fine with that. That's perfect. Thank you.
Solar, all right. Everybody okay with that by consensus? We don't need a vote. I'm sorry, Councilor Preciado.
I just had a question on what the definition of sustainability would mean if we're adding sustainable resources and energy sources. It kind of seems a little redundant.
I don't know. Is there a definition of sustainability?
Madam Chair?
Councilor Doucette?
Thank you very much, Madam Chair. I see these as examples in which the other approaches were also included as examples. A lot of these were focused on landscaping.
Yeah.
I wanted energy to be included as examples.
Gotcha.
So it's more of a clarification, like, hey, we're open for this and this. So,
My question is more pointed to, it says in that second sentence, shall be integrated. So sustainability and green infrastructure shall be integrated. So sustainability meaning solar, geothermal shall be integrated.
I would guess that sustainability is talking about the life.
Madam Chair?
Life isn't the right word. The length of a building's ability to be there. But you want it to be sustainable. You're not building something that you're going to have to knock down and rebuild in 5 years. You want it to.
Madam Chair?
Councilor
I
Doucette.
think to Councilor Presidiado's comments, I didn't want this to be a requirement. I wanted it to be a good to have, encouraged. So I think if we can possibly reword change the final wording to be more, less definitive and more supportive, would that be acceptable?
I think so, as long as the language is
Okay.
clear.
So, Madam Chair, can you repeat the language again?
Well, the approaches may include, it doesn't say that those have to be part of what's
Okay.
included.
Okay. So it's
just giving
nothing
you a
definitive, but
list,
just
it's saying that the green infrastructure piece shall be integrated, so,
And that integration may include blah, 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 blah,
Yes,
blah.
green
blah.
infrastructure and sustainability, and I'm sure that's all related to the building code.
Okay. Yep.
Are you okay with, all right. Continuing on with design standards, pedestrian and bicycle circulation. Pedestrian circulation. Safe, convenient, and attractive pedestrian circulation shall be incorporated into the site plan design. Where appropriate, new pedestrian and bicycle paths shall connect the site with abutting sidewalks, trails, amenities, or parks to contribute to a system of pedestrian and bicycle circulation. Where appropriate, pedestrian access should be expanded into a shared-use path to provide safe, convenient, and attractive bicycle access. B, pedestrian connections. Sidewalks shall provide access from internal site uses, building entries, shared outdoor spaces, parking areas, amenities adjacent to the property, connections along Donald Lynch Boulevard, and connections between adjacent properties. C, bicycle amenities. All developments shall include provisions for the parking of bicycles at locations that are safely separated from vehicular and pedestrian circulation and convenient to building entries. Bicycle racks shall be placed as do not obstruct pedestrian walkways or impede the parking area for automobiles. Number 3 is shared outdoor spaces. And this is, again, back more comments from shared outdoor spaces. Buildings and site features shall be arranged to create functional shared outdoor spaces, including outdoor seating areas, outdoor gathering areas, outdoor areas for eating and outdoor activities. Landscape features, topographic changes, art, or other features may accent these shared outdoor spaces. Shared outdoor spaces shall be provided and integrated with the site plan and building design. Multiple shared outdoor spaces should be integrated within a larger property. All shared outdoor spaces should be accessible through a network of connected sidewalks and paths. Shared outdoor spaces may include balconies and rooftop spaces is a new addition. And shared outdoor spaces shall enhance visual connections between buildings, streets, open spaces, and pedestrian circulation. My question to the solicitor was specific to the addition of the shared outdoor spaces may include balconies and rooftop spaces. My concern is there will be a requirement for green space in buildings, and I don't want a balcony on a private residential property to be included in their required outdoor open space. So he had suggested that shared outdoor spaces may include balconies and rooftop spaces. I forgot exactly how, he's got the language. Shared outdoor spaces may include non-residential balconies. So you may have a restaurant with a balcony. That could count. I just don't want all these residentials with these cutesy little balconies going, oh, which if you paid attention when we did the Marlborough Village and we required private spaces, we allowed balconies to count. So adding in that clarification, shared outdoor spaces may include non-residential balconies. Everybody okay with that? Everybody okay with all the rest of it as I read?
Good.
Counselor Austin, were you
I'm good.
going to say anything? Okay, and then the location of outdoor seating is, outdoor seating areas may be provided for restaurants, cafes, coffee shops, or other establishments with seating and may overlap with shared outdoor spaces. Outdoor seating areas shall be located adjacent to or near the use they are serving. Amenities and seating shall not reduce the required sidewalk widths of pedestrian circulation or negatively impact pedestrian or bicycle circulation. Everybody okay with that? I got ahead of myself. All right. Signage. Except as otherwise provided in this section, signage shall conform to the provisions of Chapter 526 of the City Code, the sign ordinance. In the event of any conflict between the provisions of this section and any provisions of Chapter 526 of the City Code, the provisions of the section shall govern and control. Number 1, signage plan. A master sign plan for the premises shall be provided for review and approval by the City Council, setting forth the types, locations, and dimensions of proposed, adding the word new signs. A signage plan shall be required for any project that involves more than 2 new signs. For a project that involves 1 or 2 signs, a master sign plan is not required. And the new language on a development lot, existing signs, and signs that are modified as a result of re-tenanting are not subject to this requirement. So again, I think they're just saying that sign they have at the mall, they want to be able to leave alone. Number 2 is special permit sign locations. In order to enhance visibility for business from Interstate 290 on the north side of the interstate, a property owner may seek special permit approval for a sign that is coordinated for the entire district to project above the highest line of the roof, or sign to be mounted on the roof of the building, or 1 freestanding pole, monument, or pylon sign designed for visibility from Interstate 290, or 1 off-premise sign location within the district for 1 freestanding pole, monument, pylon, or digital display sign when such a location has been identified and is available for the purpose of improving business visibility from Interstate 290. The special permit sign shall be subject to the following requirements. Sign design shall conform with 526(9)C unless waived by the City Council. Message board signs are prohibited for special permit sign locations. No freestanding sign shall be located closer than 5 feet to any property line. Signs, logos, or cabinets shall be externally illuminated where possible, otherwise with translucent or transparent faces, if no reasonable alternative is possible. And sign location shall be integrated with landscaping into the overall site design, shall not require clearance of trees or pose a risk to roadway safety. And number 3, special permit sign
Madam
location.
Chair?
Oh, sorry, Councilor Doucette.
Thank you very much. I just want to talk about signs for a minute, because that always happens in this
Talk about
council.
what?
As far as the signs go, I would expect, considering modern technology, if they're going to put up 1 pylon sign, it's going to be some sort of LED display. It's not going to be a static, it's going to be something that will be changing or something like that. Because if there's a lot of activity going on within the district or something like that, it's going to be dynamic. Things are going to get covered or something like that. I just want to make sure that that could be allowed within this. I know that there was something about message board signs are prohibited for special, if we need to do something where basically dynamic sign is allowed or something like that, just to make sure it gets allowed.
I don't know if we have a definition for a dynamic sign, so
Okay,
I don't
'cause-
know when we go to 526(9)C, we know what that means.
Okay. Okay.
We have the, what are they called, EMC signs.
Right, right. Well, there was LED displays. I mean, there are LED displays, but the problem is not animated, but it's a changing sign. You know, I just want to make sure, because we had the issue with LED signs.
So are you talking about in D where it says they're externally illuminated? Do you want them to be illuminated via LED?
Externally or internally illuminated.
Well, I think we prefer them externally illuminated.
If we're looking for visibility from 290, it'd be best if it was internally illuminated. So while I understand in certain areas of downtown where it's more of a community type of, environment, having illuminated signs makes a lot of sense. On the other hand, if you're trying to get their attention from 290, okay, which is a highway, you need to get something that really grabs people, so it's going to be internally illuminated. So I would like to make a reference to say it should be internally, or if you guys want to change it, just say signs and cabinets should be illuminated where possible in the evening, and not strike the reference for it to being externally.
So I would suggest we change it in the very first paragraph, not in any of the ABC stuff, because that's specific to the freestanding pole from Interstate 290. And my guess is that's more
I
like,
was looking, because this is 2B, section,
but I think the D is signs,
Four.
logos, or cabinets are ones that, I don't want Donald Lynch Boulevard to become Route 9, where you drive
So-
down and you just got lights everywhere. So
Right,
if
right, yeah.
if a business needs a sign, I want it to be a sign that's lit up by lights externally illuminated.
okay, but this is for highway observation.
Right, so it's going to be on top of a building,
Or a
and my guess
pylon.
is that one would be internally illuminated because those lights are really not going to, so if that's what you want to be internal, we can change, we can add that specificity to,
So that would be in the monopole section?
to,
Because it basically, the only time I'm concerned about that is wherever they put up a single pole, like this one reference that, where was that?
Madam Chair.
Yeah.
Counselor Ossing.
So if there's changes that you have, this is my concern is we're gonna spend all our time on signs. We're missing the point. If you've got changes you wanna make to the sign part, write them down and submit them, and we'll take them up under consideration. We'll debate signs for the next 10 hours here, because we get hung up on signs, and the council secretary will correct me. It's the biggest pain in the tush that we have in the city is the sign ordinance. I prefer not to dwell on the sign ordinance. If there's something you don't like or want added, write it down, and we'll put it in for vote and consideration. But if you're gonna try to work out the words tonight, let's call for pizza, because we'll be here a while.
Madam Chair, I don't think it's going to be that much in respect to the president.
In Section D, though, it does say where possible. So for someone who is going to, the same way that we've been doing in the Route 20, whatever district that's now called, business district, where we've got the same language, we want them to be externally illuminated, but every single sign we've approved has been internally illuminated.
Yes, it's a wayside
Because
district.
we're matching what's already there, even though the point was to try to change it. So I would rather keep it, if it says where possible, then I would think that when we get to the ones that are going on top of a building to be seen by 290, those are going to be internally illuminated, because it's just the only way that it can be done.
Understood. That's why I wanted it to be straightened out for that case. But
I guess
was
my
concerned.
concern, and I guess I'd almost have to go back and read exactly what it says. I remember, though, there was a sign waiver at the planning board for what's now the Dolby building on what street is that? It's one side faces 495, and they wanted a sign, but they had a sign on the front and the side. So they had to get a variance to add another sign on the property.
Yes.
So that could become an issue for these buildings if they've got a sign on the front and a sign on the side. They might not be allowed to have a sign on the back. So that's a battle we'll have to get when the time comes. Councilor Preciado?
I would argue that that language is already in here under 2A4. So it says, otherwise with transparent or translucent or transparent faces if no reasonable alternative is possible. So I would imagine a big pylon, the single pylon that's going to be in this community, is not gonna work if it's externally illuminated, so it's already gotten a pass there in this section. So I don't think we need to change anything.
Yeah, I think we're
Fine.
kind of
Let's-
covered.
let's move on.
And then, okay. Let's see, where are we? I read all of those. Special permit sign locations. In order to enhance visibility and wayfinding for the district at district gateways in a coordinated manner, a property owner may seek special permit approval for signs coordinated for the entire district at the principal points of entry to the district. I'm going to make sure I'm reading the right one here, because this one did not have any. Where am I? All right, permit approval for signs coordinated for the entire district at the principal points of entry to the district, allowing one freestanding pole, monument, ground, or pylon sign that is coordinated for the entire district at the principal points of entry to the district with a total number not to exceed 3, subject to approval by the city council. A, additional secondary directional signs may be approved by the city council. B, the signs shall be coordinated in design and material and feature a reasonable number of individual tenants in a hierarchy that reinforces an identity for the district. C, the sign shall be designed in such a way that individual tenants can be changed to keep signs relevant and up to date with uses in the district. D, the total allowed illuminated cabinet square feet of signage shall not exceed 200 square feet per side per freestanding sign. The height of any freestanding sign shall not exceed 30 feet from the ground measured directly at the sign base. F, no freestanding sign shall be located closer than 5 feet to any property line. G, signs, logos, or cabinets may be either externally illuminated or internally illuminated with translucent or transparent faces. H, sign location shall be integrated with landscaping into the overall site design, should not require clearance of trees or pose a risk to roadway safety. I, signage profile shall be tall and narrow, a structural frame that is engineered to site specifications and design materials that may include stone, brick, aluminum, or other metal materials to match the district identity. Is there any other questions on that one? Are we good with signs? Get to application, special permits. An application for special permit for use in the development in the Donald Lynch Boulevard District shall comply with the requirements of 650-59 of the zoning ordinance. 2, site plan approval. An application for site plan approval in the Donald Lynch Boulevard District shall comply with the requirements of Chapter 270 of the City Code, Article 2, permits and approvals. 8I, site plan special permit approval review criteria. An application for site plan approval or special permit approval in the Donald Lynch Boulevard District under this section shall adhere to the following review criteria in addition to those specified in Section 272 of the Marlborough City Code. Number 1, compliance of the design with the design standards in the above subsection F. Number 2, compliance of sidewalks and paths with Americans with Disabilities Act design standards. Number 3, the placement of utilities and wiring underground to the extent practical. Number 4, the placement of HVAC equipment, fans, generators, and other site-related structures and items so that they are not visible on roofs or building frontage areas, or that such features are suitably screened from view wherever reasonably practicable and where elevation permits. Number 5, enhanced pedestrian amenities with sidewalk providing access from internal site uses to Donald Lynch Boulevard, property adjacent sidewalks or trails, between parking areas and uses, between abutting properties, to adjacent natural assets, and amenities into outdoor open spaces on the property or abutting the property. Number 6, all lighting proposed shall be sensitive to the night sky, utilizing Illuminating Engineering Society of North America guidance for any lighting design. Number 7, submission requirements in addition to those specified in 272 of the Marlborough City Code. A, site plan depicting proposed development, buildings, parking, vehicular, pedestrian, and bicycle circulation and outdoor open spaces. B, building elevations. C, landscape plan. D, lighting plan with photometrics. And E, site and building sign plan. Any questions on that? Okay, we'll go to J, standards for roadways and drainage. Roadways, internal Donald Lynch Boulevard roadways and site circulation shall be private ways and shall be maintained by owners, developers. The change is adding the word new. Private ways within the Donald Lynch Boulevard district, to the extent feasible, shall be constructed using the methods and materials prescribed in the City of Marlborough subdivision regulations, but shall not be required to conform to the dimensional requirements thereof, provided that those private ways shall be adequate for the intended vehicular and pedestrian traffic and shall be maintained by the owner, developer, or an association of owners. The design of private ways and parking circulation shall be as efficient as possible to reduce the overall development impact in areas of impervious surfaces. Everybody okay with that? It's just adding that one word, new, private ways. And then 2, stormwater management system. On a development lot, the following requirements shall only apply, I think that should be apply, shall only apply to that portion of the development lot that is proposed to be redeveloped. Developments proposed in the Donald Lynch Boulevard district shall have a stormwater management system designed in accordance with the City of Marlborough subdivision regulations, the Department of Environmental Protection Stormwater Handbook, and the standards and the city's stormwater ordinance, chapter 271 of the city code as amended. The stormwater design shall infiltrate all stormwater on site and avoid runoff onto adjacent properties, and is encouraged to integrate low-impact development techniques and green infrastructure such as bioswales, rain gardens, or other surface stormwater treatment features that are integral to the function of the site's stormwater management and highlighted as a landscape feature. Everybody okay with their additional sentence as amended? I'm sorry, Councilor Nabin?
Yeah, inherently, I don't have an issue with the statement that basically applies to the mall only if it's redeveloped. Just a question, if anyone has the answer. Are there any current, and I don't believe I've seen any, but any current stormwater management issues over at the mall? Obviously, there's quite a bit of pavement over there now, but I haven't noticed it in large storms, so I just want to kind of, if we're going to put that into the language, I just want to make sure they're not having any current issues.
I am not aware of any. Are you? Nope, none from MEDC. When I drive on Donald Lynch and it's raining and storms, I'm not hitting floods of water, and I don't think there's an issue on the Assabet River.
Okay. I didn't know if we'd heard from engineering. I just figured it wasn't.
Councilor Preciado?
Yeah, is it possible to add in this section something about using porous concrete? I don't know if it would apply
yes,
to here.
that was a suggestion from the planning board, if I remember correctly. They had encouraged porous pavement where appropriate. Again, I think we could add that in, encourage to integrate low-impact development techniques and green infrastructure. To me, porous pavement is a green infrastructure. We could just add that as one of those.
I think just shoving in there.
In that list. And then we can keep that in mind when we get to the actual special permit piece. I'm sure site plan is going to be pushing, I know planning board is pushing porous for subdivisions, especially on cul-de-sacs, so that they have Anything else for anybody? The rest of this is just the zoning map describing the parcels, which I believe have been looked through, and I'm sure that the solicitor will double check. And if anybody is willing to continue, we can go through the long list of 17, or we can
So, Madam,
come back for another discussion.
so Madam
Councilor
Chair,
Ossing.
I would argue that the presentation I gave to Urban Affairs in March did that. I listed what was
And I guess
Go-
I would
good, bad,
say,
changed, and then I also incorporated the comments that I received from Council Preciado on veterinary clinics, your comments on open-air markets, Council Doucette's comments on warehouses, and then all the other LI stuff stays as is.
and going through it, and I know, I'm not sure, I believe everybody had received the communication from Mrs. Sharon, where she had gone through the presentation that was done by Councilor Ossing, and had argued that it wasn't thorough enough. I don't know that those are her exact words, but I'll use that definition. In reviewing this again, I have a couple of questions on some of them, so I would prefer to go through and, if nothing else, just review them again, so.
I mean, if you got changes, let's talk about the changes. If no one else has any changes but you, and you have a handful, let's take the handful up. I mean, if you want to go through each one of them.
Considering we've gone through everything else in detail, I figured it was easy enough to just go through this and compare. Mostly it was comparing LI to what's in Donald Lynch Boulevard. Again, it's almost 9:15. As I said, we don't have to finish this tonight.
Madam Chair,
Councilor Doucette?
if we decide not to finish it off tonight, when would be the next meeting, hypothetically?
I was suggesting that we meet on, if I can get my calendar to come up, July 15th,
I'm good with that, Madam.
which is a Monday that we're off from. We have our city council meeting on the 22nd. Again, that would allow us to finish this up. I could then report it out on the 22nd and refer to the solicitors. That would give him time to then work on this to have it on the August meeting, which is our last opportunity to vote. Councilor Preciado.
I would agree with Councilor Ossing. If you have any changes, we've all seen this list already, and I think we've approved what the changes were and what the zoning would allow. So I would be okay with moving forward today and finishing this up.
Okay. All right, so on 65017, we've got the new column, Donald Lynch Boulevard. A change from what is in LI is a multifamily dwelling is allowed in DLB by special permit. Residential accessory uses is allowed by special permit. Looking at the definition, oh good grief, I got way too many pieces of paper. Can I find what? In the definitions, there's a number 6 in parentheses behind that, residential accessory uses. It says for residential, such uses are limited to a tool shed, a playhouse, tennis court, boathouse, or other buildings or structure for domestic use, such as storage of boats or boat trailers or private garage for motor vehicles, but not including more than one vehicle owned by a non-resident of the premises. The taking of no more than 3 lodgers or boarders by a resident family in a dwelling except for residency districts. provided that no dwelling so used shall be enlarged but may be remodeled for the same or like purposes and stairways unless in the rear of the building shall be located within the walls of the building. So basically, I think what we're doing are multifamily dwellings. We're not doing single-family dwellings. I don't see the need for anybody to ask for a special permit to allow a tool shed, a playhouse, a tennis court, a boathouse, or other building or structure.
So you want to change special permit to no?
I want to change it to no.
It's okay by me. So again, councilors, it's a 10-page zoning map. This is on page 2, so that you're all following along. It's the 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, fifth one down. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, sixth one down. Residential accessory uses, currently says special permit. That'll get changed to a no.
Everybody okay with that?
Yep.
The next one is customary home occupations. It's got a number 7. It's right below residential accessory uses. So number 7 reads, no more than 25% of the floor area of the residence is used for the purpose of the home occupation or the professional use, or if an accessory building is used, no more than 30% of the floor area of the accessory building and residence combined. So again, we're not talking single family, we're talking multifamily apartment buildings. Do we want multiple somebodies in an apartment building to have a home office, especially if that apartment building has a security system that would then have to be engaged to allow people to come into that home office to discuss things? I guess I would prefer it to be a no.
Chair?
Councilor Doucette.
Thank you very much, Madam Chair. So I see 2 different types of home offices, okay? The first home office is basically the remote work guy or person who is some intellectual, either business or technology or something, and they are working from home for some other company someplace else, okay? There is no visiting to this person's office because he's working out of his house. If he's going to meet someone, he's going to meet him at Starbucks. They don't necessarily meet in the house. And I'm not sure if there's a way to separate one from the other for this, but I agree with you. They can't have a home office, a public home office, shall we say, versus a private home office.
It's a home occupation, not someone working from home.
Okay, so the home occupation would be someone who would have a public presence.
They're not specified. Customary home occupations, they're permitted provided that 25% of the floor area isn't used. It doesn't really say. I thought somewhere there was a list of what were considered customary home occupations, but it might be. I think of them as a hairstylist,
Okay.
because you can have those in your home.
An accountant.
I'm sorry?
An accountant.
An accountant. So people are going to be coming to you
Yeah.
in your home occupation.
I think allowing them within special permit would be okay. It
And
allows us to.
again, how does someone who rents an apartment in an apartment building come to us for a special permit for a customary home occupation?
Madam Chair, if, let's say hypothetically, this complex is associated with the Solomon Pond Mall as it currently exists, then there would be some public space that he could have access to associated with his unit. So in those cases, that would definitely be something where, a hairstylist would be in the front within Solomon Pond and he lives in the back hypothetically. So I could definitely see something like that happening there.
I think those
But as a
could
special permit.
potentially be different than what we're thinking of as a typical home occupation.
Well, we try
Because
to
it
try to
can't be more
define
than
new use to the
20%.
property, so.
It can't be more than 25% of the floor area within the resident. So if you're talking a shop with the resident behind, we're talking two different things.
Well, it's still having the public space of the person accessible within the, within the confines of the unit.
Councilor Oram?
I just believe there's so many changes happening in our world and the way people are handling their own occupations that I believe to say no would be too restrictive, and I think we have to take them case by case, and I'd suggest special permit. And I can also note that they may have to get through their multiple unit facility first before they even get to see us to see if they can even do it. So I don't see a problem with staying with special permit. That's my view, based on all these changes in the world.
All right, I'm not sure how we'll handle the special permit, but I guess if nobody else is agreeing with me, I'm okay with keeping it as it is. So the next one is right below it, yard sales, charitable sales, bazaars. Customary yard sales, charitable sales, bazaars, customary residential yard sales, charitable sales, or bazaars are permitted provided that, and I'll go back and read, customary residential yard sales are provided that the sales are not conducted for business purposes. The residential yard sales are primarily intended to dispose of personal property belonging to the resident living in or near the premises, and no permanent change in the site or structure shall be made so as to alter the appearance of the lot. And again, I mean, there's a whole bunch
Madam
of
Chair, so
other stuff.
I mean, there are, I know, at least 3 single-family residents that are there by right now, right? I mean, so we're gonna strip them of all these things if we take them all away, but.
So I mean, I guess I could see for them, I'm just, forgot about them. I'm thinking more of the proposed future residential multifamily buildings that now those people want a yard sale in their parking lot. Maybe,
Well, they have to come before us for a special permit.
okay. Councilor Preciado, did I hear your name? All right, so we'll leave that as it is. Artist studio, live, work, gallery space is a no in LI. It is allowed by special permit. Recording studio, live, workspace is a no in LI, and it is a special permit in the Donald Lynch Boulevard. I think those were really my only ones, but I do want to again go through all of these that are different. Convert buildings to office, bank insurance is a no in LI. It's a special permit in DLB. Veterinary hospitals are a no in LI and allowed in Donald Lynch with a special permit. Schools for business, trade, music, dance, or television are a no in LI and allowed with a special permit in Donald Lynch. Private clubs, nonprofit clubs, self-service laundry, medical office, those are a no in LI and allowed in DLB by a special permit. Medical office clinic are a no in LI and a simple by right in Donald Lynch Boulevard. Dental clinics are a no and are allowed by special permit. Consumer service establishments are allowed by special permit, and I got to figure out how to get rid of that. Mixed-use development is a no in LI, allowed by special permit in Donald Lynch. Copy shops, newspaper offices are a no in LI and allowed by special permit. Outdoor storage is a special permit in LI. It is not allowed in Donald Lynch. Open-air markets are not allowed in LI and are allowed by right in Donald Lynch. Soil removal and accessory uses are both yeses in LI and are now special permit in Donald Lynch Boulevard. Restaurant cafe is a special permit in LI. It is by right in Donald Lynch. Restaurant with a drive-through is a no in LI. It's allowed by special permit. Drive-through facilities is a no in LI, allowed by special permit in Donald Lynch. Contractors' yards are allowed by special permit in LI, as are landscape contractor yards. Those are both a no in the new district. Agriculture, horticulture, floriculture, over 5 acres is allowed in LI. It is a special permit in Donald Lynch Boulevard. That's one that I'm not really sure why we want to allow those, even by special permit. 5 acres is taking up a lot of space.
I'm okay if you want to change it to no, Madam Chair.
Everybody okay with?
Yes.
And I know we need farms, but I don't know that we need it on Donald Lynch Boulevard. Councilor Brown.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I was just one more time going to revisit and wonder if this could be a time to maybe by special permit allow tattoo and body piercing parlors and shops.
And which page is it on?
That would be
Page
on
6, I see.
If the body is agreeable.
I am agreeable. By special permit, I guess I would like it, is now only allowed in industrial, which is kind of strange because I don't know that it's body piercing, but there's an ear piercing place at the mall.
Yeah.
Special permit, everybody okay? All right, works for me.
Thank you.
Special permit, okay. Contrary, we're back there. So agriculture, horticulture, we're all okay with making that a no?
Correct.
All right. Public recreation and conservation is a no in LI. It is by right in Donald Lynch Boulevard. And airports and heliports is allowed in LI. It is by special permit in DLB. Manufacturing where the majority of items are sold on premises to the consumer is not allowed in LI. It will be allowed by special permit in DLB. Light manufacturing using portable electric machinery is not allowed in LI. It will be allowed by special permit. And retail sales accessory to manufacturing is not allowed in LI. It will be allowed by special permit. Councilor Preciado.
I don't know if we would ever put an airport or a heliport out there. It's under special permit. Could we make it a no?
The heliport, I don't know that we would want an airport even by special permit because of the flyover restrictions that our airport that we no longer have caused within the city. But I could see a office wanting to have a heliport. I think that, I don't know any on, well, obviously the hospital, but Boston Scientific used to have a helicopter when it wasn't Boston's before, whatever it was.
Stratus.
If
I've
we're
never seen
okay,
anybody fly there, but.
if we're okay with air traffic over that area, which would be a new community.
I would assume, I mean, heliports are totally different than runways. They just go up and then they have to.
I understand.
Height. So
Yeah.
we could look at it depending on where it is related to wires and all that other stuff as a special permit. You okay? Councilor Doucette?
Thank you very much, Madam Chair. So there was a heliport at 200 Forest Street in Marlborough. when it was Digital Equipment Corporation, and I had the opportunity to take the helicopter into Boston a couple of times. Basically, helicopter transportation follows major highways, so they literally just follow the highways. So in the case like this, wherever they came from, they'd go 495 to 290 and land there. So any type of traffic wouldn't just be your normal helicopter traffic that you see any day. So I see no problems with this whatsoever.
All right, and the final page, dry cleaning is not allowed in LI. It will be allowed a special permit. And data storage telecommunication facilities is currently allowed by right in LI. It will be a special permit in Donald Lynch Boulevard. And I guess that's one why special permit when we allow them by right everywhere else we allow them. Is there a reason? They're just a big building with actually no parking usually, except for the employee that has to go make sure everything's running okay.
If the preference, if you wanted a yes, that's fine. I mean, I just thought that gave us a little more control because I didn't want to turn it into I didn't want to turn Donald Lynch Boulevard into a data storage telecommunication mecca, because that way then everybody just, if that's what the new wave is, I don't want it to be all data storage down there.
And I guess I can hear, although it's not in the limited industrial, I think we only have one facility in the city of Marlborough when we actually added it to the table of uses,
Yeah, I don't know.
back when it just sits quietly on Forest Street. Councilor Navin?
I agree with President Ossing on this one, just in case the world is going in that direction. There's a lot of space out there. There's a lot of land out there. Somebody comes in who we don't know about, who's well-funded and wants to take up a giant amount of space and take some of that control away. I don't know. I mean, I think it's great to be able to have it if that's something we want to do and carve it out, but giving us the ability, I think, is a good idea.
Okay, Councilor Doucette.
Thank you very much, Madam Chair. So the biggest issue of massive data centers would basically be energy costs. And this is not, proximity doesn't matter much if it's a true data center. It can be located anywhere, so they tend to locate them where there's locations of cheap energy. We don't have the greatest costs here, so I think allowing a special permit is fine. I don't expect it to happen. If it does, it's not going to be a massive one, as much as it would be a smaller scale one for a regional center or something, but that'd be fine.
Okay, thank you for indulging me in going through that. Councilor Orem.
Couple of questions. I'm visioning this, and I go back to the remarkable work they've done at Gillette Stadium, and they actually have a hospital at Gillette Stadium as well. And I was wondering why it's an automatic no for hospitals versus a special permit. I'm not trying to put Marlborough Hospital out of business, but, you know, the population, as we all know, is aging. And the other question I had was convalescent and nursing homes, why they're also a no. I know, again, I'm visioning this to be an exciting place, and a lot of work went into it to make it that way. But why is it an automatic no for both of those? And maybe I should go through you to Mike, to Council Ossing, to ask that question.
Do you have an answer, Councilor Ossing?
I've got an answer. We've been approached on numerous times in the past for developers that want to put, I call them assisted living facilities, down on Donald Lynch Boulevard. And current zoning doesn't allow it. And then the issue of emergency response times made it, because if you listening to a scanner, you know, New Horizons, the Branches, Christopher Heights, that it's multiple times a day to those places, and to have them challenge emergency medical services to go to the furthest part of the city is just, it was not deemed appropriate. So we've always discouraged developers from trying to come in and say, change the zoning to allow us to do it, because it must be a moneymaker, because they will come. If the zoning allows it, they will put up an assisted living facility anywhere. So that was part of the target, was to not do it. As far as hospitals, I don't know, selfish. We have one hospital. I wasn't want to open it up to more hospitals down there. If the council wants to open it up for another hospital, I'm not going to kick and scream.
And I appreciate the answer. I understand. It's just having it as an automatic no versus maybe discussing it under a special permit would be, I think, more practical, but and those discussions may come up when it comes up for a special permit. Are you going to fund for all the extra emergency services? But I just was surprised with the aging population. You know, we're trying to attract all types of businesses here and make it an exciting place to be, but I'm just thinking with the aging population that maybe, in my view, special permit for both of those would be suggested for me. Again, it's just seeing the way things are going out there. You got a hospital right at Gillette Field. So I was just looking at that as, I'm hoping this will be like Gillette Field. Hopefully someday we'll have I really hope a recreational facility that might attract major league teams or minor league teams. But with that said, that was my question. The other question I had, if I may, Madam Chair, just real quick, I know it's getting late. Where's Berlin stand with all this? Have they been looking at what we're doing, or are they still not looking at this point?
My conversation with the mayor, he's met with them. I don't know if you have any sense of where they are, Councilor Ossing.
So, I mean, Meredith can, if I go off track, Meredith, you feel free to correct me, but the mayor has reached out to the town manager of Berlin. We've invited them. They've participated in our sharing of documents, providing comments. Their Economic Development Board has looked at it in the past. The town manager, the mayor has reached out to on several occasions to get her to, she actually lives in Marlborough, to weigh in and provide comments, and to no avail. It doesn't mean they don't want to do it, but as I remind the mayor, all water and sewer for that complex goes through Marlborough. So, I mean, they can do whatever they want to change their side of it, but in order to do any kind of water or sewer permitting, they have to come to Marlborough. So we kind of hold a little bit of the purse strings, and why they don't see it is because right now just the mall owns it, so the mall has to, it's not like each unit of the mall goes to get a water permit. The mall gets the permit and we deal with the mall. And so the mall would be working, you know, hopefully with us, assuming they own it. But Berlin, they could rezone it to whatever they want, but it doesn't, if they need our services, you know, they're gonna be challenged by it. And I don't see that happening. I mean, they got their hands full with that new apartment, 240-unit apartment complex just down the street, so.
Well, I appreciate the answers. I was just curious. A little fun fact, if you're ever in the mall and you see little diagonal blocks about that size, that's the property line. It goes right through where Cinnabon is, right in that area.
Yeah.
Look on the floor and you'll see these little diagonal blocks. And that's how the first responders know if they're in Berlin or Marlborough. Very interesting. But thank you, Madam Chair. Thank you, Mr. President, for your answers as well.
Councilor Nabin.
Thank you, Madam Chair. As noted, it is getting pretty late, so if there are not a whole lot of other discussion and you're looking for a motion,
Yes, other than I don't want to belittle or belabor this. The only other piece is the zoning with the Donald Lynch Boulevard added into the table of area. Everybody's okay with that, and this addition of Councilor Ossing will remain in there along with being added into the other language, so.
motion to approve as amended here this evening.
All right, it's been moved and seconded to approve the proposed Donald Lynch Boulevard zoning as amended with tonight's notes. I will open it up for further discussion. Seeing none, all those in favor? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. All right, so I will get this written up, since I now have some time to do it, but I will, and then on the 22nd, I can ask for suspension to refer the document to the legal department, which gives them time then to have it on the August 22nd council meeting for a vote. Again, that's our drop dead date.
Motion to adjourn?
All right, it's been moved and seconded to adjourn. All those in favor? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. We are adjourned at 9:38, 39.